I always imagined my 35th birthday would be remembered for the stunning 3-tier cake I spent hours perfecting or the rare bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon I'd saved for a special occasion. Instead, it became the day my life fractured into a million pieces. The day I caught my husband of 12 years, Daniel, tangled up with my cousin Lila in our upstairs bathroom. The house had been alive with laughter and celebration all day. I'd invited our closest friends and family, hoping for an unforgettable evening. The living room sparkled with elegant gold and white balloons, and the dining table was set with my grandmother's finest china, reserved only for the most special occasions. "Has anyone seen Daniel?" I asked, balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres while greeting late arrivals. My best friend, Olivia, shook her head, adjusting the flowers in a crystal vase. "I think he went upstairs to grab something," my brother-in-law mentioned casually, reaching for a stuffed mushroom. I nodded and kept hosting, but a nagging unease tugged at me. Daniel had been distant lately, working late, taking mysterious calls, coming home smelling of unfamiliar perfume. I'd buried my suspicions under layers of denial, telling myself 12 years of marriage couldn't end over something that might be nothing. Lila had arrived fashionably late, as usual. She was my mother's niece, my first cousin, but we'd grown up more like sisters. She was effortlessly stunning, tall, slender, with caramel hair that cascaded in perfect waves. I'd always admired her, even when envy flickered in the shadows. "Happy birthday, cuz," she'd exclaimed, hugging me tightly and handing me an exquisitely wrapped gift. "This party is incredible. You've outdone yourself." As the evening wore on, I noticed both Daniel and Lila had vanished. 20 minutes passed, then 30. The cake was ready, candles waiting to be lit, but my husband was nowhere to be found to lead the birthday song as he always did. "I'll check upstairs," I told Olivia, who gave me a look that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. The second floor was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the lively chatter downstairs. I checked our bedroom, empty. The guest room, nothing. Then, as I approached the master bathroom, I heard it, muffled whispers and a giggle I recognized instantly as Lila's. My hand froze on the doorknob. Part of me wanted to run, to pretend I'd never heard a thing. But the stronger part, the part that had suspected for months, pushed the door open. The image before me would be seared into my memory forever. Daniel's hands tangled in Lila's hair, her lipstick smeared across his mouth, her dress hiked up around her waist. They were so lost in each other they didn't notice me at first. When they did, the horror on their faces might have been comical under different circumstances. "Sophia," Daniel stumbled back, nearly tripping over the rug. "Don't you dare say this isn't what it looks like," I whispered, my voice eerily calm despite the storm raging inside me. "Because it's exactly what it looks like." Lila frantically adjusted her dress, her face flushed with guilt, and something else. Excitement? The thrill of being caught? "Sophia, please," she began, reaching for me. "It just happened. In my bathroom? On my birthday?" I laughed, a hollow sound that didn't belong to me. "Things don't just happen, Lila." "How long?" Daniel stepped forward. "Sophia, let's talk about this privately." "How long?" 6 months, Lila whispered, tears welling in her eyes, crocodile tears, I thought bitterly. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of stolen kisses, of late nights and fake business trips. 6 months of me blaming myself for our dwindling intimacy, planning romantic dinners to rekindle what I thought was fading. The party continued downstairs, oblivious to the explosion in my bathroom. I could hear someone calling my name, wondering where the birthday girl had disappeared to. "Get out," I said quietly. "Sophia, please, I can explain," Daniel started. "Get out," I screamed, my composure shattering. "Both of you, get the hell out of my house." They scurried past me like guilty teenagers, Daniel grabbing his phone, Lila clutching her purse. I watched them hurry downstairs, making weak excuses to bewildered guests about an emergency. Olivia found me moments later, sitting on the bathroom floor, staring at Lila's discarded earring. "Oh, Sophia," she whispered, kneeling beside me. "I'm so sorry. I suspected, but I didn't know how to tell you." I looked up at her, something hardening inside me. "Don't be sorry. This isn't over." As guests murmured in confusion downstairs and my untouched birthday cake sat on the dining table, I made a decision. Daniel and Lila thought they'd humiliated me, broken me. They had no idea what was coming. The next week passed in a blur of lawyer meetings, ignored calls from Daniel, and sympathetic casseroles from friends who'd heard about the spectacular collapse of my marriage. I moved through the days like a ghost, nodding at the right moments, but my mind was elsewhere, meticulously planning my next move. Daniel had moved into a downtown hotel, texting daily apologies that grew increasingly desperate. Lila had fled to her mother's house in another state, conveniently avoiding the fallout. They thought the worst was over. They were wrong. "You should consider therapy," my sister suggested over coffee, her eyes filled with concern. "Revenge won't make you feel better, Sophia." I smiled and nodded, but internally, I disagreed. Revenge wouldn't just make me feel better, it would restore the balance they'd shattered. My first step was gathering information. Daniel had always been careless with passwords, using the same combination of our anniversary and his childhood dog's name for everything. His email, social media, bank accounts, all were open books to me. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. The affair hadn't been a moment of weakness, it had been calculated. Flirtatious messages, hotel receipts, even plans for a future together, all meticulously documented. Next, I focused on finances. As the CFO of his company, Daniel prided himself on his financial acumen. What he didn't realize was that I'd been paying attention all these years. I knew about the offshore account, the investment property under his brother's name to avoid taxes. I knew everything. "Mrs. Hartwell, these allegations are serious," said Thomas Whitmore, the silver-haired forensic accountant I'd hired. "If what you've shown me is accurate, your husband could face significant penalties for tax evasion." I merely nodded. "And this stays confidential until we're ready to move forward?" "Absolutely," he assured me. While digging through Daniel's files, I discovered something unexpected. Emails showing he and Lila were planning to start a business together, a boutique marketing firm ironically specializing in authentic brand storytelling. They'd even secured a small office space downtown and were courting Daniel's clients. This changed everything. A plan formed in my mind, not just to expose them, but to beat them at their own game. I reached out to Nathan Carter, Daniel's biggest client and an old friend of mine from college. Over lunch, I pitched him my own marketing vision, one that would undercut Daniel and Lila's plans. "I had no idea you were interested in marketing," Nathan remarked. "There's a lot people don't know about me," I replied with a smile. That evening, I filed for an LLC of my own, True Narratives Marketing. With my background in communications and the contacts I'd made over the years, I was perfectly positioned to become their direct competition. As Daniel and Lila planned their launch party, I methodically contacted every client on their list, securing commitments before they even had a chance to present. By the time their event rolled around, most of their guests had already pledged to me. The night of their launch, I arrived at my own event, held at the same upscale hotel where Daniel had first taken Lila, dressed in a crimson power suit, exuding confidence. My presentation was flawless, culminating in a reveal of Daniel's own emails, exposing his hypocrisy. He stormed out mid-speech. By the end of the night, I'd secured 11 clients. Their event, meanwhile, was a disaster, Half the guests never showed. The next morning, the IRS arrived at Daniel's office. His assets were frozen, his reputation in tatters. Lila showed up at my doorstep, begging me to call off the madness. "You have no idea what's coming," I told her before closing the door. A year later, I sat at a cafe in a new city, sipping espresso and reviewing projections for True Narratives, now a thriving agency. The divorce had been finalized, Daniel's career was in ruins, and Lila had fled the state. As I celebrated my 36th birthday with close friends, I realized the real victory wasn't in destroying them. It was in rebuilding myself. Sometimes, rising from betrayal's ashes requires scorching the earth first. What grows afterward is entirely up to you.